Welcome to the Magical Melting Pot podcast series that celebrates America's diversity through food, where leading culinary experts share their stories, cultures, and career journeys. Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be interviewing Kerry Brodie today, the founder and CEO of Emma's Torch. Emma's Torch empowers refugees, asylees, and survivors of human trafficking in New York City by providing culinary training, work experience, and job placement services. Emma's Torch was chosen as a CNN hero in 2019 because of the amazing work they're doing. And Kerry's background is really interesting, and all her experiences seem to have converged to envision this really incredible idea and to bring it to life. And we're very lucky that she's going to share it with us today. So my first question is, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how it led you to the idea of starting Emma's Torch?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm really grateful to get a chance to chat with you a little bit about Emma's Torch and what led me to create the organization. I grew up just outside of Washington, D.C. I was fortunate enough to study Middle Eastern politics at Princeton University, and I always thought that I was going to work in politics. I was one of those kids who grew up and decided they wanted to be Sam Seaborn from The West Wing. And so I started my career in DC. I worked at the Israeli embassy, and then I worked at the Human Rights Campaign. And it was a really strange moment of realizing that I had such a great job. I loved the people I worked with. I was really learning a lot. But the thing that I thought about all day was the volunteering I was doing at a local homeless shelter on the mornings on the way to work, where I would hand women at the shelter a muffin, and we're just talking about, like, can we serve X number of people breakfast in the morning? But what was really sticking with me was the conversations about food, about, oh, well, at home I would eat this, or my mother used to cook that. And it made me realize that there's such a commonality through food, and perhaps there's more that could be done with that concept, with the idea of using food to better people's situations and give them more power. And I am fortunate enough to have a long-suffering husband who I think got sick of hearing me say how someone should do something, and eventually said, why not you? Why can't you be the person to do something with this? And so that was probably the most important question of my life, more important than will you marry me? And we've now, really, the rest is history.
No, that's amazing. So can you explain how the program works, the countries the students are from, how they apply, and help you prepare them for careers as chefs and land jobs after?
Of course. So our program has gone through a couple of iterations, but there's some core elements that have remained the same. The way we think about it is the best way to prepare people for the workforce is to give them jobs from day one. And so our program is a fully paid hour, so it's 400 hours a week for 10 weeks, culinary training program. Approximately 300 of those hours are spent in culinary skills. And so that's everything from learning how to hold a knife, how to dice a tomato, to actually working in the restaurant. Before COVID, that was working in the restaurant. Right now, it's working in our cafe where we have takeout and delivery. It's taking orders, it's making lattes, it's understanding those mechanics over those 10 weeks. And then the other 100 hours are spent on what we call personal development. We used to call it soft skills, but we realized there's nothing soft about it. It's English classes, resume building, interview prep, math classes, and just helping our students realize that what they have to offer is so valuable and that they should be demanding the beginnings of really wonderful careers. And so at the end of the program, we help our students land that first job. Throughout the program, they do mock interviews, and then they start trailing at restaurants pretty much as soon as they graduate. Before COVID, we had our average placement to job was within a couple of weeks at most. Now it's a little bit different, but even still, what we're seeing is not just that our students are landing jobs, but they're retaining jobs, and the feedback from employers is just so positive. So we see ourselves as definitely partnering with our students to help them begin careers, but also helping kitchens become more diverse, become more inclusive, and really benefit from hiring our graduates.
I read your background. I think I first went to LinkedIn after I heard about you. I happen to live in the neighborhood, and so I've been watching kind of the progress from when you first came in. But I know that you went to the Institute for Culinary Education, and I'm just curious because what's amazing about you is I think the studies that you did at Princeton and Middle Eastern studies, the work that you did, when you graduated, and then studying about the culinary arts. Can you just explain a little bit, like, did you have the idea before you went to ICE, and was part of the reason you went to be able to do this program, or is it just something that you're able to draw on afterwards?
Really funny. When I started at ICE, I was talking to the owner of the school about the program that I had, this idea that I had, and he was looking at my background. He said, "So it just looks like you like to go to school." And I was like, "Yes, I really like going to school. I like learning." And so when I had this idea, so after my husband said, stop complaining and do something, more polite than that, but that was the gist of it. I started doing research, and I was really aware that while well-intentioned, I was 25 years old. I didn't know this industry. I didn't know this area. And so I did a lot of research and met with anyone who would talk with me, everyone from refugee resettlement agencies on that more social service providing side, and then chefs, restaurant owners, culinary instructors. And it made me realize that the one thing I never wanted to do was to ask our students to do something I was unwilling to do. And so I made the decision to go to culinary school, and I'm very privileged that I was able to do that. I was able to work part-time, and it was just an amazing experience, not just to learn culinary skills, which was really fun and exciting and invigorating, but more than that, to learn how to teach culinary skills. I'm really fortunate that my educators at the Institute of Culinary Education have remained mentors and advisors, and especially when I was getting started, they gave me a lot of tough love and a lot of advice. So it was a really important part of my experience. And those relationships were not only beneficial to me. One thing that's really wonderful is 2 years ago, we had started graduating students and they had been in the workforce for a while. And the head of ICE actually offered to have a scholarship program for exemplary students of ours who wanted to get a formal culinary degree. And so we've had now 2 students complete that program. They went through a big application process, but it's just a beautiful way that this industry of educators and chefs and restaurant owners really fit together to make something beautiful.
Oh, that's great. So that gave you the ability to empathize with them, put together the program, understand, as you say, all the aspects of being a chef or owning a restaurant, and then how to get them jobs. That was like amazing training for exactly what you're doing. Anyway, I just thought it was really interesting. So you've gotten really gratifying recognition and increased awareness for the work that you've done, including being selected as a CNN hero. Can you share how CNN found you and some of the other examples of where your work has been profiled?
It's almost a little embarrassing, I have to be honest. We've been really spoiled. And I say it's embarrassing because I know so many leaders and visionaries who work for a really long time without that recognition. And I think that it's been a combination of luck and location. One of the early things that happened was that we decided we needed to test the model. We had a tiny budget, and at the time said, why not? Let's give it a shot. And so we got the keys for a pop-up location on a Monday, and we opened that Friday. And what I didn't know was that in Red Hook in Brooklyn, which is where we had our pop-up, there were a bunch of reporters. And so when they found out we had opened, they came in for brunch. And that's really been this conduit for continued coverage and recognition. We, again, when we opened our long-term location in Carroll Gardens, one of the early pieces, I was at Emma's Torch, I was chatting with some guests who had been there a few times, as, "Oh, it's so great to see you in for another meal. Like, are you celebrating something?" And the woman said to me, "No, actually, I'm a reporter for the New Yorker, and I'm writing a piece." And so those stories just built on themselves. I also think that we were lucky to attract attention because of the impact. And so CNN and Rachel Ray and a couple of others noticed that what we were doing was both delicious in the food we were creating and impactful in what was happening with our students. One of the early ones before CNN that I'm very proud of our team for and can take no credit is that Emma's Torch was named one of the 100 greatest places in the world in 2018, which is just crazy, but is really a testament to what our team was trying to build, because we feel that way too.
Wow, that's incredible. I know when I saw, I told you this, but when I watched the video on CNN, I was in tears. It was just so wonderful. I just love what you're doing. It's phenomenal. How is Emma's Torch funded? What are your revenue sources? Because I think it's hard as a restaurant, to make enough money to fund the students' educations. And can you just share a little bit about that?
Definitely. So the funding structure for Emma's Torch is kind of interesting. So we're a nonprofit. Everything we do ultimately ties into the mission, the impact. That's the bottom line, and that's the thing that we focus on. And what happens is that our revenue generating businesses, so if you go and buy a cup of coffee, if you order one of our gift boxes, if you attend an event, all of that goes to support the nonprofit, and hopefully you benefit from your cup of coffee as well. And so that side, the revenue generating side, which is a direct output of what our students are creating and learning, before COVID was on track to offset between 50 and 60% of our operating budget, which is pretty tremendous. However, because of COVID, that's really shifted. The other previously 50% in 2020, closer to 80%, and this year it'll be a little bit different. We'll see what happens, is foundation, individual donors, corporate support, the more traditional routes for nonprofits. But because I started working on this 5 years ago, we're very new. We're really supported, a large amount of our support comes from individual donors, from people donating $20, $30, $18, which has been, it's in some ways, that's what also drives us to be as direct as possible. We want to make sure that if somebody's giving us their small donation, their hard-earned money, that this is the contribution they can make this month, we need to make sure that we're turning that into impact. And so one of our biggest, if not the single biggest expense of the program is that we pay our students $15 an hour, and we have since the day we opened, whether they're working in the restaurant or in an English class, because we want to make this feasible for them to continue down this path. And so it is a struggle, as any nonprofit leader will tell you, but we're also really fortunate to have an amazing community of supporters.
It's fabulous. It's really amazing. Just the awareness you've been able to generate. A lot of it's been organic, but it's such a great story that people feel good about being a part of it. Can you talk a little bit about your menu, just in case we have any listeners who want to order, and do you have catering, and what's been your inspiration for what you prepare and offer?
One of the people that I met early on in Emma's Torch, who is now my colleague, my friend, I refer to him as my partner in crime, is Chef Alexander Harris. So early on in the history of Emma's Torch, Alex came on board as our culinary director. And Alex is one of those people who combines passion and dedication with precision in a way that I learn from every day. And we're going on, I think, 4 years of working together. And so his inspiration behind the menu is really a melding of different things. First and foremost is, what do our students need to learn? And so sometimes if you look at our menu, you can try and piece out, like, where's the homework here? Like, what are the skills? And then it's Alex's sensibilities and his voice as a chef, which is, Alex is a classically trained chef with real roots and a real respect for American cuisine. He used to be the chef de cuisine at Blue Smoke. And then finally, Alex is the embodiment of lifelong learning. So it's infused with things that we've learned from our students over time. And so our menu at the restaurant before COVID was really focused on this idea of fusing American traditionalism with global inspired elements that would be familiar to the students. And now with our menu, which is more of a cafe, breakfast sandwiches idea, is still capturing that ethos. We also do catering. A lot of our catering right now is on hold, but we do galas and weddings, bar mitzvahs, fine dining catering. And we found that oftentimes the guests who hire us to cater their events are doing it because they want something delicious, and they want to know that their catering budget is going towards something positive. And then finally, we've started doing some packaged goods, which are also inspired by that combination of, what do our students need to learn and what are we learning from them?
So what packaged goods are you making?
So we're making right now, we just launched a new one, but we do spiced nuts in collaboration with Burlap and Barrel, which is a single origin spice company. We do Hawaiian hot chocolate, which is a Yemenite spiced hot chocolate that we serve at the cafe and also sell as a packaged good. We're about to launch our biscuit mix, which is Alex's, I think I ate them every day when I was pregnant, the best biscuits in the world. And we're hoping to launch our hot sauce in the next couple of months.
Oh, it's fabulous. It's really fabulous. And I love the way you've made sort of a provisions area in the front of the store. So what's your vision about how Emma's Torch will evolve? Are you thinking of adding more students from different countries, training in more cities, more different aspects of training? I'm just curious a little bit more about your long-term vision.
I think it's all of the above. We are constantly trying to figure out how do we do more for our students. We bring on a new group of students every month, and in some ways that allows us to refine the program in real time. In addition to that, we're hoping to reopen in full force and not just go back to where we were before, but to really use what we've learned now to do better in the future. So that means opening at our library location, reopening catering, opening at Citi Field, and doing so much more. And then finally, what we are exploring is what would it look like to have more Emma's Torch locations, both within New York, but then outside of New York. There's so many communities that we feel could benefit from this type of partnership in areas where maybe we could make a difference in working with other social service providers to do more.
That's great. It's really just so inspiring. So you talked about how you've been impacted by COVID, but are there any other pivots that you made that you feel like discussing? And as you mentioned, I think you just really covered it. Any further pivots if we return back to normal or somewhere in between? I know, like, I'm sure every country, every business in every country in the world right now is scenario planning because there's so much uncertainty, how quickly things will get back to normal and what normal will look like. But is there anything else you'd like to share regarding that?
Sure. So one thing that I didn't touch on, but that we're really proud of is that we've had a really, like everyone, it has been a really challenging period of time. And from the moment this crisis hit, we realized that we wanted to make sure we were there for our graduates and alumni. We have an alumni student body of over 100 students. And so we started doing online classes, and that's been so effective that we actually have decided to continue that on as an alumni track. So every week we do continuing education classes for our alumni. And in addition to that, we realized that if we really wanted to move the needle, it's great that we are starting people's careers, but could we really springboard them? And so we launched a secondary program, which is our Track 3 Fellowship, where we've actually brought back 2 of our alumni from the first year of Emma's Torch to do an advanced management process, which has been really exciting. That they've been able to join our team for 6 months. The first fellow will be graduating in 2 months, and so we'll see what he does next. But part of this idea is that we can help these individuals jump a couple of rungs ahead in their career, and hopefully they can open doors for more of our graduates, which we're really optimistic about.
That's super. It's wonderful. So how do you measure success? To me, there are so many really great outcomes from what you're doing. I was thinking what they might be, and you're making people happy, productive. They can now support their families and work in a career that they love. Just watching the CNN video, the friendships and camaraderie they make in the program. Are you again tracking number of students that graduate, the types of jobs they land, all of the above or any others?
We track all sorts of data. One thing, there's the qualitative and quantitative. So the quantitative that we look at is job placement, job retention, and wage delta. But that only tells you half the story. It's really great. But what I'm more curious about is actually not the amount of money in the newly opened bank account that you are opening for the first time here, which is great. But what does it feel like when you go deposit that first paycheck? I might be crazy, but I still remember that first time that you are like, yes, I earned this salary. And the other qualitative things that we look at is what does that mean for your overall family? What does it look like for your daughter to see mom graduate from a formal education program for the first time? And how does that change your family dynamics as a whole? And how does that ripple out to your whole community? And so while we definitely keep an eye on those quantitative pieces, I think those are super important. We do try and capture somewhere what are those qualitative ones. One of them that I just love so much is that one of our graduates who's doing great and it's wonderful, named his daughter Emma. because of the impact on his life. And
that's
so
nice.
while I have a
That's
vested
so
interest in
nice.
everyone's kids, baby Emma will always have a very, very big piece of my heart.
Oh, that's so nice. That's wonderful. That's great. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, first of all, they should probably check out the website, which is Emma's Torch, EMMASTORCH.org. And I'm sure there's contact info there, but is there any other way that you would suggest they follow or get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So definitely reach out on our website. We get back to people within 48 hours. Also, you can message us on Instagram. We're at Emma's Torch Food, or Facebook, or really anywhere else. And you're welcome to stop by the restaurant.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing what you do. I'm going to come over and get one of those hot chocolates. It sounds delicious. And yeah, just, keep on and we'll keep following you. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.